The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to this new webinar from Cloud Academy. I am Andrea. I am the head of content strategy at cloudacademy.com, and I am so pleased to be your host here today, together with Paddy, who is co-founder and head of strategy at Fortisan Online Technology. Welcome, Paddy.
Yep, thanks, Andrea.
And with me there is also Jitendra, Senior Cloud Architect for Fortisan Online Technology as well. And welcome to you too, Jitendra. Okay, so today with our friends, they will be the main panelists in this webinar, where we will see how to process large data set on AWS using this software, Batchly. Batchly is a great software. It has been crafted by the excellent team at Fortisan Online Technology. It's great to have it on your side while performing complex computing tasks like working on large data sets. It has a lot of features to schedule, manage, run large processing jobs on AWS, especially because it allows you to abstract all the complexities around using AWS itself. You know, large data processing is not an easy task and needs some extra efficiency, excellent performance to be done in an effective way. So you really need great tools like Batchly in your equipment. During this webinar, we will see how Batchly is fit for this job, why you should take advantage of it if you are about some serious work, and they will see it in action. Anyway, I don't want to steal a minute of time to Paddy and Jitendra, so without further ado, I'll give the floor to our friends from Fortisan Online to let them go deeper in details and tell us everything about Batchly. If there are questions, feel free to write them in the chat. We will have a question and answer session towards the end. So, Paddy, Jitendra, it's over to you guys.
Hey, thanks, Andrea. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for hosting us with this webinar.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Okay. Yeah. Great. So we are here to talk about processing large data sets on AWS using, of course, our product Batchly. How we are actually tapping into AWS is what we're going to talk in this webinar. It's going to be a short webinar, and we only seek about 30 minutes of the attention span of the audience in this webinar. And moving ahead, so it's going to be Paddy, there is me, and Jitendra from Fortisan Online. I'll talk a little bit about large data sets and the current model, why it would not work, and how AWS is a great platform. And moving ahead, Jitu will talk about Batchly. So what you see on this screen is some numbers where the size of digital universe as of last year is about 4.4 zettabytes. So this is 4.4 trillion GBs of data that has been generated last year, and 1/3 of this data is generated by enterprises. And it is expected that this data is going to grow exponentially over the next few years, 10 times actually, to 44 zettabytes by 2020. So that's a lot of data that is getting generated, and these are log data, financial data, medical data, images, videos, and a whole bunch of other data that we are actually creating day in and day out. And enterprises have to process this data for business needs, both from operational and strategic perspective. Moving on. So everything comes in large amounts. So how do enterprises handle this large data? Where do they store it? How do they read it? How do they process it? And how do they handle failure? Or how do they build fault tolerance? So these are significant questions that enterprises have when it comes to processing large data. And as you can see on this slide, you don't use the traditional system to process large data. You will have to think differently, you will have to bring in scale, and you will have to bring in parallelism to handle this large amount of data efficiently and give you the strategic benefit both from cost and time perspective. And that is where cloud is a great platform. Your traditional model is not going to work for processing large data, and cloud is a game changer. Cloud is the way for processing large data sets. And we'll stick to Amazon Web Services here specifically when we are talking about cloud. So you can see the attributes of a public cloud service like AWS, service-oriented, scalable, shared, it's metered by use, it's outcome focused, and it is over the internet. So there is it is basically there is no capex, no upfront investment, unless if you stick to a reserved instance, which is a different ballgame. So there is no capex when it comes to AWS, low ongoing cost, and there are a lot of benefits in terms of flexibility and agility that it provides. And the icing on the cake with Amazon Web Services platform when it comes to processing large data sets is Spot Instance. So Spot Instances are unused capacity available on the spot market within AWS. So these are instances that are available at deep discounts, 10 times cheaper than a regular on-demand instance. And this is a great solution or a great way to process your data, but there are some trade-offs with spot instances. So if somebody outbids your spot price, your instance is going to go away. Also, spot instances are not always available. You might encounter a situation where there are no spare capacity available in a particular region, so there is no spot instance that is available at a given time. So you will have to handle such failures or such unavailability issues when you are actually accessing spot instances. So just to set the context here, we are talking about large data that is being generated in different formats, in different forms, and it is very difficult to process this large data in traditional model, and cloud is a great way to process this data. But cloud, Amazon Web Services is very complex for an enterprise to come and adopt it easily. So as you can see on this screen, this is just a snapshot of different other instance types that are available on AWS. The last I noticed, there are about 34 instance types across 6 different instance families in AWS, and that is beyond, I'm not even considering EBS optimized or the different availability zones, different regions, and to all this complexity you add spot instances in terms of the bidding strategy, in terms of handling failures. So this is a lot of complexity that is being brought in. Though AWS is a great platform to handle large data sets, there is a lot of complexity for enterprises to adopt or tap into AWS, and that is where Batchly comes in. So Batchly essentially is a batch processing solution in the cloud. It offers a layer of abstraction around AWS and lets users tap into the power of AWS without really getting into the details of managing infrastructure, handling spot instances, handling failure. So with that introduction, I will hand it over to Jitendra to talk more about the product Batchly and also show a video in terms of how it works in specific use cases. Over to you, Jitendra.
Thank you, Paddy. As my colleague Paddy had mentioned, we love AWS. So we have been working with AWS for the last 4 years, and it has been a phenomenal success for us in terms of what capabilities are available in AWS and how it can be utilized. But what we have noticed is that of late we find that people are having difficulties getting onboarded onto AWS, and that could simply be because of the success of AWS. So AWS wanted to offer a lot of services to a lot of diverse set of users, and what we have today is a lot of features available, and people getting confused over what is the best approach to take. So what we have done is we have tried to take all the good things out of AWS, and we try to create a platform that makes it easier for anyone to process a large number of files and a large amount of data. All right, so that is exactly what Batchly is. So Batchly is a cloud-based parallel processing system. So it is essentially a container to which you can put in your code, and it kind of adapts itself to the existing infrastructure available on AWS. It identifies what is the right way to process, and it offers a simple endpoint in terms of identifying how the processing should be done. So what we have noticed is that there's a lot of cost, there is a lot of features available on AWS, but there is no real SLA in terms that makes it human-like. So what we have done is we have brought in a concept within Batchly that makes it easier for you to set up an SLA. So you want to process, you have a large amount of data and you want to process it. So there are only two factors that we consider. How quickly do you want to process, and or at what rate do you want to process it. So you can come over, you can specify, we can take a simple use case as a processing images. So you have a S3 storage system in which you have kept say 1 million images, and you can come over and specify that you want to process all that images within an hour. And Batchly takes care of abstracting all the complexities that are available, and it essentially ensures that the right size of instance is taken and the right number of instances are taken to ensure that your SLA is met. So that's one way for Batchly to process. There is another SLA that we bring in that essentially is based on cost. So you can come over and say, I have 1 million images. I don't care how long does it take, but I want it to be processed within say $20 or $25. You set up a budget for your processing. So what Batchly does is it goes into the spot market. So the spot market is essentially additional capacity that AWS always maintains to ensure that whenever you request for an instance on demand, that instance can be provisioned. So on the side, what AWS does is these machines are essentially available for anyone to bid and take. So these come at very steep discounts. So you get somewhere between 70 to 90% discounts, even in some cases. Wherein the only catch is that if there is a huge request for on-demand instances, the one that you have bid and taken could be taken away from you. So, so this plays along nicely with what Batchly does, where it's essentially a container that can process things in parallel, and with the fault tolerance and error tracking kind of features, we can essentially reprocess items if they are not processed, or if it's taken away midway, then we can essentially retry for the same logic and ensure that things are done. So this abstraction helps us in actually lowering the cost of processing, where if we get enough spot instances, we can go ahead and even promise you that we can give you somewhere between 60 to 80% cost reduction. So so Batchly architecture is quite simple. So it's somewhere like a ETL kind of a model, or a EMR kind of a model, wherein there is a central controller that takes care of processing everything. There's a broker that essentially ensures that the data is massaged and offered to agents in a form that's acceptable to it. And agents are essentially your pieces of code that are running parallel across multiple instances. And we use the entire feature set of AWS to ensure that there is tracking, there is logging, and all the good things that come up with any system is made available. The entire application is accessible to a simple portal wherein you can come over, you can configure, and you can monitor everything from a portal. You don't really have to launch any instance, or you have to look through what is happening. All the data is readily available through our portal. You can monitor, you can take reports, you can run, stop, you can do everything that's out there without the complications of actually putting your hands on any kind of infrastructure. So what Batchly does for you is it respects your SLA, irrespective of what is the size of operation. So today you could have a job that says I have 1 million images, I want to process it within an hour, and tomorrow you could have 1 billion images and you can still say that you want to process it within an hour. So irrespective of what is the size of data, whatever is your SLA, Batchly would respect it and ensure that your work is done within your defined time and cost budget. And depending on whatever is the need, we scale out or scale in. We take care of essentially keeping that elasticity of AWS within your application and ensure that things are done at the pace that is required. All right. So in addition, we monitor your code execution. So you write your code within our container. We take care of retrying on failures, tracking all the errors, logging it, and essentially offering it through a portal where in case something goes wrong, you get to know what really happened and you can take corrective actions on top of it, right? We take care of automating all of your infrastructure. So we ensure that if an instance goes down, that is a new one that comes up. We ensure that an adequate pool of instances are always maintained to ensure that the work that needs to be done is done on time. And we take care of cleaning up everything to ensure that the entire cost is kept low, right? In addition to it, we save cost every time. Whether you select a time-based budget or a cost-based budget, we always ensure that all the instances that we have taken up are of the right size, they are utilized to the fullest, and we always bid for spot instances to ensure that there is always cost saving that's available while using Batchly. So a simple example of a time or a cost-bound SLA is that when you say that you want your work done in 10 hours, we ensure that there are only 2 instances running, and we monitor, we ensure that within 10 hours your work is done. When you want to do it in 2 hours, we ensure that sufficient additional instances are added into the pool to ensure that the work is done in 2 hours. So we always keep track of what is happening, and we always monitor your instances, and we ensure that whenever something goes wrong, we take corrective actions immediately. On the cost-bound model, so you can set a budget of $500. We might have 3 on-demand instances and 1 spot instance running to ensure that the work is done within $500. You can come over and reduce it to say $250. We will go ahead, kill the on-demand instances, launch a lot more spot instances at the adequate price, monitor the price to ensure that the budget is always adhered to, and ensure that your work is done. So either ways, your SLA is always respected, and we always give you feedback in terms of what is happening and whether your work is done at what pace. All that information is readily available on the portal, right? So, so how does one get started with Batchly? So as I mentioned, Batchly is essentially a container. So we have a single interface against which you can write code. It just does a single unit of work. So if you're processing, say, 1 million images, we don't really want you to process 1 million images. You just say, how does a single image gets processed? We take that, we package it into our container, and we launch it and ensure that all of your images are processed. So rest of this stuff is simply on the portal. You come over, you configure what is your location, where have you kept your files or data. You define what is your SLA, and you can monitor online, or when your work is done, we notify you that your work is done. You can always come over and pick out your output. Right? So there are a lot of interesting use cases that are available when it comes to using spot instances. So it could be in terms of analytics, both on the financial world or on the technical world, where there's a lot of log files that are generated. There is a lot of good data that you can pick out from it. And we know of a lot of customers who do not want to spend too much money on it, so they prefer to use spot instances to do those kind of analytics where the cost is low but the output is pretty high. A lot of image and media encoding kind of work where you are allowed to skip a file or reprocess a file, because it's a lot more cheaper to do it that way than invest money into infrastructure and keep it running at all time. A lot of data is generated as part of your geospatial analysis or scientific computing. These are good use cases for you to try out Batchly. And again, internet is a growing world, and there is a lot of information that's available on the internet. So web crawling is one area where you go in, you find out what is available. There's a lot of interesting data that comes up whenever you do a lot of these web crawling kind of use cases. So these are all ideal candidates for Batchly. And we have a small demo, so it just showcases how things run and what is out there and all that. So it's a small video, and I'll skip over certain portions to ensure that we get this demo done in the shortest time. So this is a small use case that we have taken. It's a it's about 5.5 million images which are available in one of our S3 buckets. You come over, you configure, you essentially say you set up a template, what we call as a job. So you specify what is your input source and how do you want to process it and all that. And every time you run it, you can keep changing. Say, I want my processing to be done in USCs because that is where my data is. You set up your SLA. You keep changing your SLA. So the first time you could have say about 5.5 million images. Second time you could have 10 million images, but you do want to play around with the SLA because you could have time constraints and all that. So actually takes care of all of your AWS calls. So it goes ahead, creates your security groups. It takes care of ensuring that the entire processing is done within your account and within a completely locked down environment. So all this is happening within your account. So even though Batchly is run as a service, it is independent of your processing and your data. So all of your data stays within your account, and all of the instances are running within your account. So you could have use cases where you could have a database that's within your data center. You could have a VPC connection back into AWS, and your instances could be running within VPC on AWS, while your data can still reside in your database. So these are kind of use cases where things you can use cloud in a very innovative kind of model. So depending on the rate of processing, Batchly automatically increases the number of instances that is required. It bids on your behalf. So as you can see, it keeps looking through the pricing history to understand what is the current price and what are the historical prices that are out there, and at what cost, if you bid, you would get instance at a cheaper price and all that. So at the end of the job, you get a summary. It gives you data in terms of what is the total cost it took for processing, what is the amount of savings that you get, how long did it take to process, at what rate did it process. All this information is available, and depending on this, you can see that you can always keep track of what is happening within your instances, and you can ensure that that you know exactly what is happening out there. All right. So with this, I'm going to hand over it to Paddy. Let Paddy take through about us and what we do.
Yep. Thanks, Jitendra. So I'm just going to wrap up talking a little bit about 47line. 47line, as a team, we've been in the cloud computing space for the last 6 years, one of the earliest adopters of Amazon Web Services globally. We have, as a team, more than 600 months of cloud experience and proven thought leadership in cloud-based architecture and design. And Batchly is one of the solutions that we built. We have one more solution which is called Priority Engine. I hope we get an opportunity to talk about that in due course, maybe through Cloud Academy. So that is what we had. I hope this webinar gave a perspective on processing large data sets using Amazon, and how using Batchly abstracts the complexity of using Amazon while also tapping the benefits of AWS. So this is all we had, and we are good to take some questions.
Okay, that's great. That has been a great presentation. So thank you, Paddy, and thank you, Jitendra. I especially liked the use cases part. I found it very interesting because, speaking about large data sets processing makes you think that there are some exotic things that never happens in your work. But I've seen things like video encoding, analytics, which are things that are quite common in many companies. So it's definitely not such a specialistic thing that one might expect. And also, I appreciated very much the quotation by Grace Hopper. I think it got the very sense of cloud computing much before than cloud computing as born. Anyway, I see a couple of questions around before we run out of time. The first question is, just choose which one of you wants to answer to those questions. The first question is, does Batchly works within customers' existing AWS accounts?
Yes, it works it works actually only within the customer AWS account. So even though Batchly is run as a service, the first step that you do as part of onboarding is to either give us your credentials so that we can create a restricted account within restricted user within your account, so that we can make AWS calls on your behalf, or we actually share the actual things that we require access to, okay, so that you can create an account and share the credentials with us. So what Batchly does is Batchly essentially stores some data around the job template and all that, but all of the information that needs to be maintained is always within your AWS account. So your data resides within your AWS account, the processing happens within your AWS accounts, and most of the metrics that we try to capture are also within your AWS account. In addition, if there are any failures and logs and all that information is also available there. So Batchly as a system does not maintain any customer data. All it maintains is your user ID and access codes. Apart from that, we don't maintain anything within our system.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And looks like we have some time for one more question. And this question is, you mentioned a huge cost savings in spot instances. How does Amazon manage to do that?
Yeah, Jitu, I'll take it. So this is best answered by Amazon Web Services. But as I said initially, when I spoke about spot instances, this is excess capacity, spare capacity that Amazon has and gives it via the spot market. So these are basically, and it's not always going to be available. So this is only when their demand for on-demand instances are low, those instances are moved to the spot market. And when there are situations where there is a requirement from users for a lot of on-demand instances, the spot instances availability is going to be reduced. So these are just excess capacity, and Amazon's found a brilliant way to offer it to the users at a reduced price. And it's really well suited for interrupt tolerant operations.
Okay, that's great.
Actually, to add to what Paddy had mentioned, Amazon is not actually losing money by giving it out in the spot market. Amazon is actually making money. So if you notice, cloud is all about capacity being available at all times for people to take. So Amazon has no other choice but to actually maintain excess capacity so that they can make that promise and ensure that that promise is always adhered to. So instead of just leaving that capacity idle, I think Jeff Bezos is pretty smart to say that why not just offer it to users and take it back, because they know for a fact that it's going to be taken back and they're going to code according to it. So it's a way for Amazon to make money using excess capacity compared to all the other cloud vendors who just have it but do not actually make anything out of it.
Yeah, all right, very well. So we definitely run out of time. It has been a great half an hour with you, and it has been a very interesting webinar. I am amazed by the things that you are doing in 47 Lines, so keep up the good work that you're doing. And I'm looking forward for our next webinar. Jitendra, Paddy, thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who joined us in this session. Great. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.